allegations of illegal activity like that would have had to have been investigated. But they fought tooth and nail, the district attorney, to keep every bit of negative information about that out. That's why they chose Jacob Burgoyne as the state witness, because Jacob Burgoyne was right there at the head of all that. Jacob Burgoyne was a soldier with a lot of mental problems. He had 7 Article 15s racked up in his career by the time they went to war. Yeah. One young man, he had put him in a coma. He had hit him so hard he put him in a coma. The guy had to be... he came out of the coma, but he had brain surgery, and for the rest of his life he lives on a colostomy bag.
Who in the hell was this Jacob Burgoyne?
This was the state of Georgia's star witness.
Where'd he come from, Cilla?
Well, from all over. He was the stepson of a Navy officer. But
had he been abused as a child?
Yeah, he had a hard life. I mean, yeah, really bad.
And he had serious mental and emotional problems, you already say. Right. And he should never have been recruited. He should never have been admitted into the military.
No. And even if once he made it in, there were many opportunities to have gotten him out of there.
Was he accused of the crime, or was he given the because?
No. He went to jail for voluntary manslaughter, but they said that he didn't do anything but help cover the crime. But see, if he had been put in the position of having to defend himself on the stand, if he was not the state of Georgia star witness, right, then all of his mental history, everything would have been coming out in court, because his lawyer would have had to defend him with something. You know? Yes. So by choosing him, they locked that down too. You know, his lawyer didn't have to get up there and say, my client's guilty of this, but by insanity, because he's got a record of mental health problems and this, that, and the other. You know, he didn't have to do that.
Did he get a sentence?
Yeah, he got 20 years.
Jacob also got 20 years.
Yeah, Jacob got 20 years. Martinez got life. Navarrete got life. And of course Douglas Woodcock just got 5 years probation. In fact, I hear he's gearing up to go back into the military. And there's no reason why he can't. He has no record.
And Woodcock, he was the one who had the skillful lawyer who did all this research and came up with the letter and all that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that letter wasn't just sent to him. It was sent to members of the media as well. But you have to understand, these towns that are near bases, they don't bite the hand that feeds them, you know. And Fort Benning and Columbus, they have over a 100-year relationship. You know, they look out for each other. They really do. There's no pretty way to put it, you know. I wish I could sit here and say, well, it's all coincidence, but you know, you can't have hundreds of coincidences and not have a dare I say, conspiracy. You know, everybody wants to look down on that word. But
all a conspiracy requires is 2 or more persons acting together to bring about an illegal end. It's trivial. When a couple of guys knock off a 7-Eleven store, they're involved in a conspiracy. Right. Insider trading, when there's knowledge on both sides, is a conspiracy. I mean, it goes on, Cilla. I mean, conspiracies are as American as apple pie.
Oh, God, don't I know it. I tell you, when I went into this, I thought I was writing a book about a horrible murder that was so unusual, you know, that it had to be told. And, you know, there was the movie made about it, In the Valley of Elah.
That's the name of it? In the Valley of Elah?
In the Valley of Elah. It starred Tommy Lee Jones, Charlize Theron, and Susan Sarandon.
Ella, E-L-L-A?
E-L-A-H. In the Valley of Elah. It's in reference to a biblical story where David fought Goliath.
But this talk about the death of Richard Davies?
This movie is about the death of Richard Davis.
Really, truly.
But yes, and see, there you go. You've got a movie with Oscar-winning director Paul Haggis, and you got and full of Oscar-winning leads in the movie, but you don't hear about it.
Well, you were telling me now that you discovered that there were many other cases like this one, which was stunning to you.
Yeah, along the way, it just started popping up. You know, people would say, well, you know, can you help me? They've said, for instance, I got the case of Benjamin Griego. a young man who seemed to have everything going in his life, Sergeant. You know, he was found dead hanging in his closet at White Sands Missile Range out in New Mexico. You know, this after ordering a pay-per-view event and
planning to go fishing with his father.
Right. You know, then there's you know, he's over 6 feet tall. They said he hung himself from a bar that was 4 feet off the ground. I guess he held his feet up. I don't know how they tried to explain that. You know, just bizarre things that they ask you to believe. Then there's Ashley Turner. You know, Adam Paleko, and just on and on and on. And it's all the same. No matter how they died, whether they're calling it a suicide or murder or unknown, the commonality that they all have is that they have the families, is that they have no place to turn. Nobody's helping them. They're having to investigate their own children's murders and deaths because they know that something is wrong. They know it's not right. And, you know, as a parent will do anything for their child, you know. And I've had to talk to mothers who have had to read to me and can read to me in the most clinical way autopsy reports of their children that their bodies have been exhumed, and they read that, and you can only imagine the goriness of that, you know. But they read it in such a clinical way because these people, these military families, and that's what they are, they deserve some help, and they should not have to be reading these autopsy reports. You know, they shouldn't have to be reading about the maggots that are infesting the autopsy incisions from the first autopsy. They shouldn't have to be doing this, but this is what they are forced into because there's no system of checks and balances. And these are strong. These are the strongest people I have ever known in my life. They're amazing to me. Every single one of them. And they need this country to stand up and demand help, real help, unbiased help that they can trust. So, and it's just not happening. There is a petition, Justice for the Peacekeepers, and there are many petitions floating around out there. You know, I hear people all the time say, well, why wouldn't this be, you know, on the nightly news? So you tell me and we'll both know. There's a concerted effort to keep things like this quiet.
Covering up malfeasance in the military.
Right. Exactly. They don't want that. They don't want that black eye. When really what they should be doing is setting an example. They should be saying, okay, this is, you know, we've got a rotten society, okay, and so we're naturally going to have these same problems in our military. But they should be setting an example and saying, but we're not putting up with it here. You take it back to the streets, but we're not putting up with it here. But what they're doing is they're covering these things up. They're just going to keep going on. They're just going to keep going on. There's no, why shouldn't it? Nobody has anything to fear. But you know, it's ugly, and these families need help, and I hope that people will go to Google, type it in, murdered soldier. You'll be amazed at what comes up.
Google murdered soldier.
Yeah, that's all you got to do, because you'll hear about it. You'll hear about cases all the time on the news, but you'll hear about it for maybe 15 seconds, and then you never hear about it again. You know, and it happens constantly. There was a soldier, and this has been going on for years. This isn't unique. At first, I thought it was unique to this era and this war, but it's not, because further research, it's been going back a long way. Years ago, members of Congress tried to get something done about this lack of a checks and balances system and these sloppy investigations, and nothing, of course, was done. So here we are years later, and it's still going on, yet it's worse. And but they've even said there was a soldier years ago near Fort Bragg who was found stabbed more than 24 times, laying in the street, and they said he killed himself.
Right, stabbing yourself 24 times. That's the way everyone kills themselves.
Mm-hmm. It's just, it would be comical if it wasn't so serious. You know.